All right, and welcome back to Mobile Mornings here on FM Talk 106.5. And pleasure, once again, to join in to the studio, Desi Tobias with Tobias and Comer Law for another edition of Law 251. Desi, thanks for coming in this morning.
Dalton, great to see you. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I always love when you come in. You always come with some great stories, and you also come with fantastic tips. And we've had such wild weather swings this year already. We've experienced summertime temperatures, and we've experienced very, very cold temperatures. But regardless, soon enough, everyone will be out on the water in our neck of the woods. And a lot of people have boats, and it's that time of year to start thinking about boating safety.
That's right. It is. I was just down at Orange Beach last week, and there's a case I have arising out of an injury on a boat. And some of the manufacturer representatives were there, and I said, I want to apologize. Right now, nobody's using your product. If you come back in a month or two, there will be thousands. And there will be in our neck of the woods with all the rivers, the bays, everything that we have, and the natural beauty. Everybody will be boating, kayaking, paddleboarding, whatever.
Yeah, it seems like they even come up with new ways to get out on the water, even still, as those paddleboards have become so widespread these last last decade or so. But, boating around here, it's one of those things where so many people have done it forever. And it's just like so many of us have always driven cars or trucks, and you think you've got everything down. You think you know what you're doing, and no one else needs to tell you any tips or anything like that. But then something happens, and you always know that it could be you. That something bad could happen to even you, the guy who's been out on the water your entire life. And that's why it's important now to check your equipment and make sure that you have the proper safety equipment on board and that your mind is right for getting out there on the water.
Yeah, that's right. And Alabama's proactive about boating safety. There's a boater safety certification course, and anybody born before 1954 will have had to have taken that and have that as part of their license. Alabama starts young. A 12-year-old can get a certification and drive or operate with an adult. A 14-year-old can get his boater certification or actual license and operate by himself. But there's some really good rules, really good tips about it. And, it's a boat is a little different than a car, and disaster can be right around the corner. The conditions change and things like that. So it's very good to take stock of where you are, to think about the rules and things like that. And there are a couple of really good points on that we can get into.
Yeah, and I know you have a lot of these great tips listed at your website, tobiascomerlaw.com. First thing I think of, and I think so many others when they think of boating, is having those PFDs on board and making sure that you have the life jackets and you're ready just in case. And, the kids have to have them on.
Yeah, that's right. The Alabama law, and you'll see the Marine Patrol out there, Alabama law requires anybody 8 years old or younger to be wearing a PFD. And I just myself, I've grown up around the Bay. I've lived there my whole life. I remember one time sailing, and we turned over in the middle of the bay, and thank God I was wearing a life jacket, and so was my son. So he was only, I think, 10 at the time. But it's very important. And there's certain other rules, like always make sure you have that the key fob or whatever attached to your hand. Remember about carbon monoxide and things like that are near the engine. There's some terrible stories about that. So, yeah, there's a lot of things to think about.
Yeah, carbon monoxide poisoning, that's not something that many people think of when they're thinking about being out there on the water with the sun and the oxygen and everything, but that happens.
It does happen, and you should never allow somebody between the engine and the transom of the boat. Never be back there, and you don't know it's a silent killer. But and there's some other things, like even the people out there on the kayaks and the paddle boards, they have rules. I mean, they need to wear a PFD. The law requires even a whistle.
Really?
Yeah, some kind of noise maker. So all those things apply and help us be safer and have a better experience.
And I do want to talk about how you can apply some of these things you're telling us in some cases that you've worked in the past or maybe you're currently working. But I do want to point out this one tip, and it's a really good tip. I just love the thought of it. But holidays are not the time for novice boaters to learn to operate their crafts. There's just something about someone taking their boat out for the first time on Independence Day weekend or, Memorial Day weekend, a lot of people get out there. Something about someone taking their boat out for the first time and really figuring it all out when there's hundreds of other boaters in the water with them at the same time.
Yeah, that's true, and there are stories about that. And I just remember myself when I was really getting used to it. Sometimes you forget which is reverse and which is forward. Or there's a story about how the props were put on backwards, and you don't know some of that stuff till you get used to it, till you start using your boat, till you get get familiar. And when the waterways are just packed, with the holiday, that's probably not the time.
No, I would say it is not. Another thing that people will encounter this year, it happens all the time, and that's hopefully it's other motorists, other people who are driving their boats and doing so under the influence. And it's the same thing. BAC .08, if you're driving a car, can't pass that limit. Same thing for, what is it, boating under the influence?
Yeah, it's a BUI, and that's the same rules, same laws, and a BUI is very serious because the Marine Patrol, and I've seen that too, the Marine Patrol generally doesn't take anybody to a city, municipal, whatever, like a DUI. You all go to Bay Minette and stay in the community correctional institution up there, and it may be 2 or 3 days to get out. But it's a very serious offense, and boating under the influence can lead to really, really severe problems, just like driving.
And there's also product liability cases. I'm sure you've worked some over the years, whether it's malfunctioning equipment on boats or let's even talk about some accidents, just like a car accident. Somebody drives into you while boating. Those things can happen.
They can. A boat, just like a car, one wrong turn of the wheel or whatever, and I've got something similar to that now where going down the intercoastal waterway, somebody was trying to hand off the boat to somebody else and turn the prop, and boom, run into another vessel full of people. And some of these boats have, you can have up to 8 or 9 people in a 21, 22-foot boat. So it's a could be very catastrophic. And also, So anyhow, we handle product liability cases coming out of those boating situations. The product liability law is a little bit different. It's the maritime law, but we handle those type cases. We also do a lot with seamen, which is somebody employed on the water who's aids in the navigation of a vessel. We represent a lot of seamen, and it always fascinates me. I was just doing some research last week for a case that I have up in Kentucky, and I looked at a U.S. Supreme Court case. It's all federal law, and it talked about how some of the codes are ancient and how it goes back to a law first passed in 1150 A.D.
Oh, wow.
Requiring what we call maintenance and cure, which is the right of medical care for a seaman. So anyhow, it goes way back, and a lot of those laws, the maritime laws, are what apply. The federal law applies to what happens on a navigable body of water.
Yeah, we think a lot about pleasure boating, getting out for fun, but a lot of people around here, a lot of people listening right now work on the water, so that's great for them to know as well. I mentioned you have this list. You have a lot of other great information at the website, TobiasComerLaw.com. But if someone is maybe looking